to NBS True Source USA, live at 2:18 from the West Newsroom. I'm Megan Eimers, and today we will be bringing you a special story from our own colleagues reporting from Uganda. Currently, Uganda is facing a major water crisis. Over half the population in Uganda lacks a good, safe place to go to the toilet, and today we will get the inside scoop on how it is affecting Uganda's population and what is being done to alleviate it. Now let's go live to NBS True Source contributor Sydney Wydell, who will tell us more about this issue.
Thank you, Megan. I'm here in Jinja, Uganda, on the banks of the Victoria Nile, 50 miles northeast of the capital and population center of Kampala, in the heart of the Great Lakes region. Jinja is located on the northern shores of Lake Victoria, and to my east is Lake Kyoga. For the most part, Uganda enjoys a warm tropical climate with 2 dry and 2 rainy seasons. The people here, like those in most of the rural areas, are primarily impoverished rural subsistence farmers, still recovering from the series of horrible dictatorships and wars that began in the mid-60s when Uganda gained its independence from Great Britain and lasted through the mid-80s. During this time of violence and terror, thousands of Ugandans were murdered and tens of thousands more suffered human rights violations. Today, Uganda functions under a non-party democracy, but this system is corrupt and ineffective. The population of 34 million is for the most part a hard-working but struggling group of Catholics and Muslims who are still coping with the repercussions of the old conflicts. But perhaps the greatest challenge these people face is the staggering lack of clean water. This is caused in part by regular droughts and low recharge rates. Also, the few local water sources have been completely contaminated through the improper treatment of wastewater, and many thousands fall ill with diseases like cholera, typhoid, and dysentery each year due to the consumption of unsafe drinking water. I'm meeting here today with Mary Magwambi, a respected agriculturalist in Jinji. Her family is no stranger to the sheer terror that waterborne illness insinuates. She has been struggling direly to keep her family of 8 healthy and clean with water contaminated by ravaging disease. Thank you, Mrs. Magwambi, for agreeing to join us today.
Aliatia, my pleasure.
So, Mrs. Magwambi, I understand you work for a large-scale cattle industry upriver.
Yes, this is actually one of the biggest water problems. These large-scale cattle farmers, they're usually very wealthy, which makes them have lots of access to water. So the water is going to the animals and not us. They also use it for their crops, which wastes much of the water too.
Where do you get your drinking water?
All the water we consume comes from either the well or Victoria Nile. This is not just water for drink, it is for the crops and the animals also.
Have you ever not had enough to drink?
We are very lucky to be so close to such a great river and lake, but I know that some are not as lucky as we and suffer much in the dry season. My sister's children do not go to school because they must have gather water. But sometimes even though water is there, it's very bad and should not be drinking.
What happens when you drink the contaminated water?
I and my children become very sick. We have very few choices. We must drink water, and it is especially dangerous for the elders and the children who die every year in the hospital. We cannot afford treatment either. Even livestock have been affected.
Describe your current plumbing accommodations.
Oh, we cannot afford plumbing. Only the very rich in the city can afford that. As I say, we depend on the well and the river. It is unfortunate to how close the village outhouse is to our home, because the smell is very bad and we cannot afford to have it emptied. Until this happens, it is too dirty to be used.
So, could you describe the factors in this crisis?
Well, I'd say one large problem is actually the scarcity of water. Thousands of people in Uganda's 112 districts are at risk of serious food and water shortages due to drought attributed to the La Niña weather phenomenon. The wells are already drying up in some of the 36 affected districts, forcing residents to walk long distances in search of water. High daytime temperatures and strong wind makes this movement difficult. And in the north, the formerly displaced persons resettling in villages in the Acholi districts are experiencing frequent fire outbreaks and falling water levels. Another factor is the stress put upon our precious water. Unplanned urban areas are developing at an increasing rate, and Uganda lacks the infrastructure to provide all these people with clean water and treat their sewage. Occasional drought causes water scarcity, as well as in some regions of the country. Also, the time it takes for the aquifer to replenish itself, our recharge rates, are very low. This is due to our geology, especially the typically layered fractured bedrock. And the aquifers aren't that common and can't really be relied on. The recharge rates depend on the topographical conditions, and groundwater levels have been especially decreasing since 1995 at least. Deforestation also leads to decreased recharge. This practice has been on the uptick. Climate change has affected recharge because water evaporated before it can seep underground. Agriculture changes natural water patterns. It's unsustainable to draw again and again. Poor and uncontrolled catchment management are also lost. All in all, recharge rates are declining.
So, what are some of the sources of the contamination?
There are many bad sources, such as streams and open wells in unplanned urban settlement. These include point sources with a single identifiable source and non-point sources with pollution from diffuse sources. Non-point source water pollution affects a water body from sources such as polluted runoff from agricultural area draining into a river, or windborne debris blowing out to sea. Non-point source affects air quality, and it can also affect the water too. And of course there are the other contaminated issues. The waterborne diseases like worms and parasites, cholera, typhoid, dysentery, Ebola, and Marburg fever affect 44% of the population. Sewage isn't disposed of properly, and it isn't directly dumped into water sources. It tends to end up there anyway, though. People share water sources with animals who also contaminate it.
How does it directly affect you?
As I said before, it affects all of us. Each day when we need water to drink, we do not know how safe it is. Also in my job, the agriculture, the crops, and the animals, we all need clean, safe water, but we also need not to waste it.
Thank you. Back to you, Megan.
Thank you, Sydney. The hope seems to be dwindling. Water treatment centers continue to strive for safe water for all. We now hear from Jill, a water treatment worker, who will further explain treatment of Ugandan water. Sydney?
Thank you, Megan. I'm here in the Kampala area water treatment facility with Jill, one of the managers. She understands that 12 million Ugandans lack access to safe water and improved sanitation.
Yes, this is true. More than half of all the residents in Uganda do not have access to improved sanitation. Sharing overcrowded pit latrines or practicing open defecation. Most people consume surface water, which is more susceptible to contamination.
And what are some of the treatment options you work with here at this plant?
We have one called WaterGuard, which the PSI, or Uganda markets WaterGuard solution targeted at the general population in urban and pre-urban areas. This product is a liquid sodium hypochlorite solution that treats a normal supply for a family of 5 for 1 month at a cost of only 30 cents per month. WaterGuard tab services to increase the range of point-of-use treatment options available to our target populations. A single tablet treats 20 liters of water and can be purchased in strips of 2 for little as 3 cents, provided a pocket-friendly option for those unable to purchase the bottle of the solution at a go. PUR Purifier of Water in 2004, PACE, then PSI Uganda launched PUR, and an affordable and easy to use treatment product. The introduction of PUR is a safe, water education program aimed at reducing sickness and death caused by diarrhea diseases among children under 5. The program targets other vulnerable groups, including people living with HIV or AIDS, internally displaced persons, and people living in urban slums. PUR is available in retail outlets at pharmacies across Uganda.
How is the wastewater currently treated?
There's not many options. Pit toilets are available to some, but the most practice open defecation. In Kampala, sewage runs into a swamp where it is hopefully purified naturally before draining into Lake Victoria. Also, a treatment plant collects sewage from pit toilets and passes it through a system. Here is the gist of it. First, the sewage is brought to the plant, sometimes by pipe, but mostly by septic tank impiters. Second, the sewage is placed in a large open pond, similar to what we have in Jones Island. The first is a sedimentation tank. Here, solids settle to the bottom of the grease and oils will float to the top, where they can be removed. Next is the anaerobic pond. Here, organic matter is removed. This is the primary nitrogen. This is done through a process called anaerobic digestion, in which the nitrogen and other organic elements are broken down. It is common in Uganda for grass to grow on top of the tank. The remaining sludge is sent to the dyeing beds where it is collected and used as a filterizer. And the last step, the remaining liquids are treated with a bacteria before released into Lake Victoria.
What are some other long-term treatment solutions?
As 2012, 90% of the collected wastewater of Kampala is discharged without any treatment. NWSC operates a small conventional sewage treatment plant in Kampala and another in Maska. In the case of Kampala, the wastewater is discharged into Nakava wetland. The wetland is estimated to provide economic benefits of up to US dollars 1.75 million per year. Removing nutrients from the untreated and partially treated wastewater discharged from Kampala throughout the wetland into Lake Victoria. As part of the sanitation master plan for Kampala carried out by the Fischer Constellants with financing from Germany, 4 waste treatment plants are planned. The lack of functioning wastewater treatment poses a threat to the environment and the human health.
Thank you so much, Jill, for sharing your knowledge of the crisis with us and our viewers today. Thank you, Megan. Back to you.
Thanks, Sydney. We now return to the studio to welcome chemist Dr. Bina Bufikis, who is a prominent figure at Harvard, where she has worked for the last 20 years in the research department. Thank you for joining us today, Doctor. I know that Ugandan water crisis is very important to you.
Oh yes, Megan. Thousands are affected by this problem, and my team and I have been working tirelessly for answers.
So what are the basic properties of water?
Well, water is a polar molecule and it's held together with hydrogen bonds. It has a remarkably high surface tension and is drawn to other molecules cohesively. Molecules on the surface of the water are not surrounded by similar molecules on all sides, so they're really being pulled together by cohesion by the water molecules within. These molecules cohere to each other strongly and adhere to other mediums weakly. Water's adhesion means it is attracted to other substances because the hydrogen and oxygen atoms are sticky, so to speak.
So tell me about the contaminants in the water.
There are a lot of contaminants in the water. Humans are exposed to heavy metals through the consumption of mercury, lead, zinc, and copper, through inhalation of air pollutants, consumption of contaminated drinking water, exposure to contaminated soils or industrial waste, or consumption of contaminated food. Heavy metal exposure causes serious health effects, including reduced growth and development, cancer, organ and nervous system damage, and in extreme cases, death. Exposure to some metals, like lead and mercury, may also cause the development of autoimmunity, which is in a sense when a person's immune system attacks its own cells, leading to joint disease, such as rheumatoid arthritis and disease of the kidneys, circulatory and nervous systems.
So what are some chemical concerns with the water supply?
Well, the two main concerns are nitrates and phosphates. Phosphorus is in general a powerful fertilizer, so when it goes into the water it causes tremendous algae blooms, and the algae produces toxins that further contaminate the water and cause drastic changes in the ecosystem. So the the phosphorus, can also lead to other problems depending on its specific form. If it is bonded to multiple hydrogen atoms, it will act as an acid and lower the pH of the water, causing changes in the ecosystem and impeding on human health. Also, we worry about nitrogen, which is also found in fertilizers and untreated sewage. They can be detrimental to young children and animals, though older people are not as responsive to it. And they cause diseases like methaglobinemia.
Today you got the inside details on an important issue in Uganda. Uganda is facing a major water crisis because they don't have good filtration or wastewater treatment. We heard from a Ugandan farmer who explained how the untreated wastewater is killing her cattle and slowly destroying her farm. In addition, we heard from a wastewater treatment worker who explained why most wastewater isn't being treated and some solutions she believes will help fix these problems. Lastly, we heard from a chemist who explained water quality on a molecular level. She discussed different pesticides in the water and how they affect us. These problems have been plaguing Uganda for centuries, but have intensified since it gained its independence. It will be difficult for the Ugandans to address this problem with a single cost-effective solution. However, education is one step that can be taken to be the reformation process. By teaching the Ugandans the appropriate sanitation measures as a step to achieve a clean latrine system and practice conserving agriculture, disease will be minimized and water will be maximized. Cost of this solution is little, but the program will be taught in schools alongside regular academics. This will also be safe, as education is the root of health. By teaching the children, they can instruct their families these methods. This is reliable because by teaching this process of safe sanitation, you can start new traditions of safety within each village. This is Megan Eimers reporting live from NBS True Source USA. Thanks for watching.